Hello, my name is Jose Martinez. I'll be your trainer today for JL Martinez Plumbing. We're going to be talking about the different ways we can actually cut cast iron pipe. This here is known as no hub cast iron pipe. It's used for underground and above ground. It's used in a lot of commercial applications. On top of which, in residential, it's normally used when we're going between floors where there might be a dining room attached to. For example, you're eating dinner, but you don't want to hear the person flushing the toilet. So this is also known as quiet pipe. In fact, a lot of times you'll get cast iron and you'll see it's a quiet pipe. So if we're ever having to install some pipe on a sewer line between the second floor and the first floor, and there's a dining room right there, it's highly recommended we put in cast iron. It's not as smooth as plastic. And this will actually, obviously because it's cast iron, it'll start to rust and corrode. But otherwise, this is cast iron. This is no hub. Again, there's no hubs to these. It's just straight pipe. The other one with the hub is known as service weight. In the old days, they used lead and oakum to make the seal. And nowadays, we still use a service weight when it's asked for, but there's actually special gaskets, Tyler gaskets, that go inside and they get pushed in with the tool. But otherwise, this is the cast iron that we normally replace it with the existing cast iron with, and it's really strong and durable. So there's a few ways to cut in cast iron. You can spend some time, especially if you have nothing else to do for the rest of the day, and maybe get a sawzall. You're probably doing a lot of hours just cutting it through 4 or 5 sections. So not the most efficient, but can be effective, but just it'll take a lot longer. Next tip is we need a grinder. I don't have one here with me right now, but a grinder, 4.5 inch grinder, 5 inch depending on the blade. Those are good. It's a problem with those, a lot of sparking. One of the OSHA regulations, if you're using a grinder, you have to use safety glasses, and then you also have to use a face shield with earplugs. The next way to cut cast iron is with a chop saw, like a grinder. So same thing. You still need to use safety glasses and a face shield. The problem with this is that both the grinder and the chop saw right here is going to produce a lot of shavings, a lot of sparks. And if you're in an area where there's a lot of combustible materials, that's probably going to be the safest place. Also, if you have a nice white wall, you better put some plastic down or something just to make sure you don't stain the wall with a whole bunch of the residue of the cast iron. So we have 2 types of snap cutters. The small compact. It's great if you're in between floors, in between joists. Maybe you're inside of a trench and you don't have room for the big scissors. So these are little compact units. These will work great. They use a ratchet. They're highly efficient and highly effective. But the trick with any type of cutting when it comes to snap cutting is to score the pipe. If you don't score the pipe, you're going to get some jagged cuts, chips on the cast iron, and then eventually, you want to go back to your sawzall, and then the job's taking you a lot more longer to get done, and you're not making as much profit. At the end, we're here to run a business, make some profit. So again, these are good for tight spaces. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be using the scissors, which I call production cutters. These are what you'll normally see on any construction site. When there's a lot of cast iron being installed, especially the no hub, just because, and even service weight, just because of the ease of snapping, the efficiency of doing so. The only issue is you are bound to get really bad jagged cuts. So today's training is based on how do we minimize those jagged cuts. To show an example before we do anything. Gotta figure out where I put my tape measure. Oh, there it is. All right, here we go. So basically, on one end here, we have a factory end. Not sure if you can see that. And the other end, we have a side that we actually snapped with a tool. It's a little bit jagged, it's a little bit sharp, but that's what a snapped connection looks like. It'll still fit on the band. We'll still get full bearing on the fittings. When it comes to cast iron, we want to use a type called no-hub band. So basically no-hub means no-hub pipe to no-hub band. Special rubber or elastic that goes inside, which literally seals to this existing pipe. There's also a little spacer that prevents this face of the cast iron pipe and this face of the cast iron pipe from rubbing and causing friction and cracking. It's very important this guy never comes out. In the service industry, a lot of plumbers are known to cutting this guy out because they can't line it up correctly. And we'll talk about that on a different video. So, what are we looking for? We're looking for as straight as possible. So we're gonna take about 4 different measurements and we're gonna see exactly what the measurements are. So in here, let me come kind of close to this. We go about 35 and a 16th. I'm gonna rotate it 90 degrees. 35 and a 16th. One more time. 35 and a 16th. So as you can see, we're able to make a square cut, and that's what we're looking for, a square cut to where it's it'll fit properly in the band. And again, the way we're going to do that is by using these production cutters over here. One of the issues that a lot of plumbers have is you just can't square this thing up. It's almost impossible. And I'm going to show you a technique for that. But also you're going to see I have a piece of plywood down. This is one of the most important steps because you're paying some good dollar amounts for some scissors here. The problem is, if you're snapping on the concrete floor, you're gonna dull the blades. If you dull the blade, then what's gonna happen at that time is you're not gonna have a nice sharp blade to make cuts. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we put these production scissors directly over the plywood. This way, when we go to snap the cast iron, the amount of force coming down and hitting the concrete is not hitting the concrete, but it's actually hitting the plywood. The wood is softer than the metal, therefore the wood will actually dent, and you're going to save the sharpness of your blade longer. Next step is, as you put the pipe in there, so you don't want to teeter-totter one side to the other. So a little trick, a couple of pieces of 2x4 cut down to 10 to 12 inches, a couple of nails. It just allows the pipe to roll in there. So we're in here and I can just roll it. It's gonna make my life a whole lot easier. I'll be able to roll everything right in here. Also, it gives me a nice space to where I'm not having to, if I didn't have this, normally you'd have to use your heels, come in here, find your chain guy or your link, and bam. So, and that's fine if you don't want to use it. But notice again, it's going to be at an angle. That means if you're at an angle this way and you're straight, you're at an angle with the cut even though you're straight because your angles are not matching. As plumbers, as we're running our slope at a 2% or a 1/4 inch per foot fall, we need to make sure that our horizontal this way and our horizontal this way all match at the same angle. Well, guess what, guys? It's the same as if you're snapping cast iron. If this guy is at an angle here, and you get this guy straight, you technically have a slight angle right there. And that makes the difference in the cut. So, if I go like this, and now I do the same thing here. What's nice about this is that the chain is free from the bottom. The pipe is as low as it's gonna get. If your grade is level, then your pipe's gonna be level. If you're at an angle, well, that's a whole different issue. But otherwise, this is how we want to get started. We want to make sure we can get this guy nice and straight. By doing that, the most important part of it is this part here and this part. If we get these two squared, in theory, this should cut straight down, nice and square, and not have these angled cuts and minimize the chipping. So, again, you can do it the old school with the heel. You might be off a little. If you don't care about that, that's fine. Me personally, I want to make sure it's as square as possible because I cannot afford to have any leaks on existing systems that we install. Especially when water comes down, causes mold. Now you're not just looking at repairing the pipe, but now you've got drywall, mold, people can't breathe, your insurance rates go up, and you know, that's dramatic, I understand. So we're gonna talk about what we need to do to make a nice square cut at least 90 to 95% of the time. You are gonna make some mistakes, it's gonna happen, or maybe there's a bad piece of cast iron. Some things are gonna happen, but for most of the part, I'm gonna show you the techniques here. So I'm gonna take a tape measure. And we're gonna measure everything off the factory in right now. Again, I can lift this guy up here. I can slide it where I want it. That's what I love about this. Put it back down. I can snap here, lift it up, slide it over here, square it up again, snap it again. This is why it's known as a production cutter. You can do lots of snaps if you have to, if you know how to do it correctly. Some guys don't want to take the time to set up. That's totally fine. But me, my guys, this is what we do. And we know this, we're in now a lot sooner than later. When you're done with this, lift up, just like that, roll it back down. So, what I'm gonna do is measure. I'm gonna say on this guy, I'm gonna pull a measurement. We're gonna say, put it at 32 inches. Get as close as I can. Oh, do we have a little marker? All right, cool. Good. Come down here, go to about 32 inches. There's one mark there. There's another mark there. So I got a mark, I'm at 32 inches. That's where I want it to cut. So my trick that I do, I get a piece of tape. It doesn't have to be a long piece, but each of the factory ends are nice and square. All I gotta do is put that right where I want it cut at. Pull the measurement, and like a 16th off, that's all right. I know where to put the blade at least. Gives me a good reference. From there, I know that this blade, the width, from the outside link to the outside link is 1 5/8. So from the face to the center is actually 13/16. So basically, I'm gonna come over here and measure literally 13/16 with the Sharpie. So there's 12, there's 13 right there. Come over here. There's 12, and there's 13 right there. Fold this guy over, and just make one little line here. So ideally, this black line is not going to be covered. That should be where the face of the chain should rest. Next step, we'll come over here. what we like to do also, I don't know if you can see this, but we made previous cuts before. A red, a yellow, a green. It's also on the other side. Red, yellow, green. And basically, this is where it snapped the pipe before. So the red we marked as 2 inch, the yellow as 3 inch, and the green as 4 inch. So 2, 3, and 4. 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch. So red is 2, yellow is 3, green is 4. So basically, all I gotta do is match this to the yellow. I'll demonstrate right now. Come over to the yellow, put it in there. That's it. Next thing, what I want to do is slide that over. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to line up this line as much as possible with these right here. Jace, I don't know if you come over here and just kind of take a nice close up of this. Maybe sideways, so you should be just past the tape. Felix, I don't know if you can. Probably not. So, as you can see, if our main mark was in the middle, it's going to be really hard to actually see where you're cutting, right? So I know I'm pretty darn close. I might be off by a hair, but I should be pretty close. So far, this is where I want to be at. I want to be right here. I'm fairly happy. The tendency is to snap. I don't recommend you do right now. At this point, my recommendation, simple, you can use this guy right here. A drywall square, cut off the small piece. There's normally a long piece and a short end. And this is, believe it or not, this is 9 degrees right here. So all I've got to do is come in here and make sure, come over here. I'm touching the bottom here. I'm touching the pipe, but notice there's a gap right there. You see that? So I swing it over this way, and now it's lined up. So now, in theory, this here should be square. I don't know if you want to take a step back, take a look at it. Come on this side. All right, so once you think you're happy, get a 4-pound sledgehammer or something this guy's want to shoot out. Put that here. One of the things I like to do is I like to have this guy at almost a 45-degree angle. What I told my guys, anywhere between the belt line and like 6 to 8 inches is a good position. Next thing you want to do is come in here and put a little pressure. You don't want to snap things, and put even pressure. And what we're doing is we're putting even pressure from this point all the way around. But there's a small area here where the wheels don't want to make contact. So what we're going to do is lift up and just rotate just a little. I'm back on the same grooves as before. Now, I'm going to cut it on 3. It might be a little loud, so just FYI. 1, 2, 3. Now, if you look at this over here, we're going to pull a tape measure, and we're pretty darn close to 32. Come over here. Pretty darn close. You can see how smooth it is here. It's not really jagged. Let me see if I can find a jagged piece to show you guys the difference. Oh, I apologize. I really can't find one, but we can make one right now. I'll make one right now so you guys can see the difference. All right, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pretend I'm not gonna use this. I'm not gonna use this. Right? Come in here. Put that over here. Lay this guy down. This is how I was trained back in the days. Come in here like this. Set it. Eyeball it. Make sure you're on your mark. Once you're there, come in here and you go boom. So still not as bad. There we go, about 25 1/4. 3/16. Actually, it's not too bad of a cut. But yeah, it does go up. But did you see the difference on the snaps? We got it nice and square. We cut it. One thing is, you can look at the tape here. This tape is literally that size. So if we had to make cuts, again, this is a quick technique. It doesn't take that long to do this. Again, by marking center to the outside of the chain, which is 13/16, lining that up with the outside. That's going to help center the blade where you want to cut at. And you're going to have less issues, and you're going to have better cuts, efficient cuts, effective cuts. And the most important, you're going to have less waste. It may not be costing you any money, but it's costing someone else some money. So this is Jose. I'm your trainer with JL Martinez Plumbing, and we're glad to have you on board.